There is no room for the Ouija in filmmaking. But we were all touched by the same feeling, and simply wished this gift to stay. It was something I hoped was honoured in the final cut, and by which Lorian's and Tom's faith in me would be justified, as mine already was with them. I asked the driver to take me to the harbour, where the fishermen were delivering their catch, with the strict instruction to collect me at the same spot in half an hour. My late grandparents lived in a fishing village, so there was something resolutely familiar in watching the boats come in. Fishermen from the one trawler docked, carried a procession of buckets to a line of trestle tables holding large polystyrene boxes loaded with ice. I was taken back to childhood, and the surprise of seeing what was there, watching now as the buckets were swiftly upturned, a shower of fish clattering into their new ice boxes. Then, as now, there was something depressing about being unable to compete with nature, and how much of its infinitesimal wonder could outsmart the camera. My film was set in the Italian countryside, and though the gardens were lit by angels, the fruit trees fulsome and glowing, they did not contain the life that tumbled before me. I thought of parental disappointment when a child follows a lesser path. Only the state of the film was entirely down to my hands. I was no bystander, but responsible for all of it. The woman on the other side of the table was shouting at me for blocking the view of others who were waiting to buy. I was awake then to the laughter of the grounded fishermen as they sluiced the blood and guts from the cobbles with buckets of fresh seawater, and the attack cry of the gulls that hovered above. "Get a move on," came one man's voice. "What's he doing?" asked another. "Make your decision somewhere else, mate." I seemed to move further back into the crowd, but I knew that I would not leave without buying a fish, eventually taking what was left in the box, a grouper, and a sickly-looking grey mullet, and going back to find the car. The bag was of the thinnest white plastic, gossamer to the touch, which allowed the rough texture of the grouper's scales to graze my palms as I walked. I could have held the bag by its flimsy handle, but, instead, I held out the package horizontally before me, as if making an offering to anyone who would stop and acknowledge my presence. My film was offered on similar terms. By walking into the hotel and the suite reserved for my first meeting with Gabby and the cast, and then subsequently with journalists and potential distributors, I too was making an offering, as pure and sincere as the catch turning rigid in my hands until I suddenly felt embarrassed, dumping the package in the gutter before we drove away. I looked at my gesture, rotting in the sun, until it was out of sight, hoping the gulls would sense that it was there and quickly destroy the evidence. Talons tearing through plastic to reach flesh and bone, pecking and chewing until nothing remained. The hotel, a grand palazzo converted in the early 60s, always felt like home. It was a repository for both my successes and my failures, rooms where I had celebrated with abandon, or cried bitter tears when the work was misunderstood. Once I stepped into the lobby and made myself known, the process would begin. Unstoppable in its certainty and form. I had no memory of why I wanted to make this film, what impulse had driven me to push this project above all other contenders, or what it was in Lorian's and Tom's previous work which had spoken to me of their potential as leads. I was unable to pinpoint the hour of shooting when I first saw magic and was compelled even more to push through. So sure of the story I was telling, fearful, of course, but determined. If anything, I wished to run from it. I knew of an espresso bar a short walk away where I could drink coffee at an outdoor table, smoke a cigarette, and give myself some final space before the onslaught. And in walking I felt a purpose regained. It was tucked deep in the back streets where the district changed into a working hue, an important factor in me wanting to go there.